Hello and welcome to another animated adventure. Today we are born of cold and winter air. Yep, we're looking at Frozen's origin tale. The Snow Queen is a literal heartwarming tale from Hans Christian Andersen about friendship and love and all of the trials and tribulations two hearts go through. If you can read the full tale, I highly recommend it. I'll be covering as much detail as I'm able in the time we have here today, so sit back, relax, grab some hot chocolate or tea, and bundle up as we trek into the frozen wastelands of Elsa and Anna's origin stories. Disney does base their tale off of an existing story, and in this case they adapted it quite a bit. Well, as the Frozen art book says, they more created something new, and after reading the full tale over and over, I can see why. Andersen writes a sweepingly epic tale of 7 stories with deeper religious themes throughout, so picking a focus in all of that and remaining relevant and interesting would be challenging indeed. Finally, once Disney landed on having an air quote villain and one of the main protagonists be sisters, did a story start to spark into the heartwarming family tale we have today. Disney Tale opens up with Ice Miner singing about frozen hearts, which of course foreshadows the plot of the movie. And similarly, Andersen's first story describes a most curious mirror. Some translations have it as imps, others as goblins. Either way, the head one, or the devil himself, or Old Nick, fashions what he considers the most ingenious invention. A mirror that reflects only the worst in things. So the better or fairer a person or thing, the uglier it looks in the mirror. Beautiful landscapes look like boiled spinach, and a single blemish seems to take over an entire face. The more good a person is, the worse they appear. After every single person in every single country has looked into this mirror, the imps decide to wing it up to the heavens. The higher and higher they fly, for in this tale the heavens are in the sky, the more good and pious vibes are in the air, and the more the mirror shakes with delight from turning the good sour. Finally, it shatters from laughing so, and thus something even the imps could not fathom happens, although they are delighted all the same. Fragments of the mirror so small as dust lodge themselves into people's eyes, and those people can only see the worst in things. Some shards are large enough to be made into windows and spectacles, but to look through them would make the looker see only ugliness. Some made their way into the hearts of humans, and that was the very, very worst, for such hearts became blocks of ice. Maybe a frozen heart worth mining? And still, many specks were so small that they remained floating in the air, which is where our story begins. In a great town lived 2 small children, Kay and Gerda. They are second-story next-door neighbor best friends who spend their summers outside on the roofs between their windows. Their parents have grown roses in each family's flower box and have connected them, creating a sort of haven for the children. This idyllic arrangement comes to an end when winter arrives, forcing the children to stay at one or the other's home, sometimes listening to Kay's grandmother read stories, or else heating up pennies with which to look outside. When it is snowing fiercely, the grandmother says, "Those are the white bees swarming," and Kay asks if they have a queen bee? "Yes," she says. She always flies where they swarm thickest. She is the largest of them all and never quite remains upon the earth. She flies up again into the black cloud. Many a midnight she is flying through the streets of the town and looks in at the windows, and then they freeze in such a strange way and look like flowers. Because both children have witnessed this phenomenon, they believe it readily, and Kay claims, "Let her in here and I will melt her on the stove." He is, however, not so brave when the Snow Queen actually does come to visit him later that night as he is dressing down for bed. He looks out the window and sees that a large snowflake has not quite touched the ground, balancing on the flower box outside of the window. It grows larger and larger and transforms into the most beautiful and delicate woman made of shining, glittering ice, clothed in the finest white gauze made of a million starry flakes. Her eyes are alive but have no peace, and then she beckons with a finger and flashing eyes to Kay, who is so frightened that he jumps down from the window. So much for melting her on the stove. Then, as stories go, it is spring. Kay and Gerda are reading and singing in their garden when a clock strikes 5 and Kay feels a sharp pain in his heart and in his eye. Now we know what this is about, the impish mirror fragments from before. He quickly brushes off the pain, says he's fine, calls Gerda ugly for crying, breaks 2 precious roses which are now ugly to his new eyes, and kicks the flower box and storms away. Wow, those curse shards really do work fast. Another side effect of the splinters is his games become more brainy too. Like, that's a bad thing? He loves multiplication tables and imitating, admittedly in poor taste, people around town with maladies, and even mocks the dear grandmother when she's reading them stories. Basically, he becomes a brat who is really good at math. Next winter, he makes Gerda flowers of ice, marveling at how superior and mathematically perfect they are to their wormy shared summer roses. Soon after, he leaves her to play with the boys, sledding in the Great Square. It is here that he is essentially kidnapped by the Snow Queen. He unwittingly hooks his sledge up to a large, extravagant dead white sledge, which does not stop when he wants to unhook but keeps speeding out of town. He tries to pray but can only remember his multiplication tables. Once they're in the wilds, the snowflakes grow larger and larger. Then the dead white sledge stops and the Snow Queen reveals herself. She offers her fur coat to warm him, he is freezing by now, and then kisses him on the forehead. That kiss was colder than ice. It went quite through to his heart, half of which was already a lump of ice. He felt as if he were going to die, but only for a moment, for then he seemed quite well, and he did not notice the cold all about him. He remembers to ask for his sledge, which a snowflake white chicken carries for him, but then the Snow Queen kisses him again, and poor Kay forgets all about Gerda, his grandmother, and his home. Kay looks at the Snow Queen and no longer sees she is made of ice, but just sees her as the most beautiful, intelligent face he's beheld. She says she will kiss him no more because if she does, she should kiss him to death. Anyway, he brags about his math skills, geographical knowledge, etc., but just doesn't think it's going to be enough to impress her. They fly over the lands by night, and by day he sleeps at the feet of the Queen. Now, whisking a child away to an ice kingdom is not something I think Elsa would ever do. She just unwittingly holds an entire kingdom and its guests hostage with her eternal winter. Anyway, from here on out, the stories follow Gerda much more closely, kind of like how Frozen focuses a lot on Anna's quest to save Elsa. In Disney, we meet Oaken and family, Kristoff, Sven, Olaf, the trolls, etc. on the Save Arendelle and Elsa mission. In Gerda's quest, we also meet a whole bunch of people and creatures, but the situations she finds herself in are a bit more dire. Well, they take a whole lot longer to get through. Gerda has had a very sad winter, as it is believed Kay has fallen into an icy river and drowned. With spring, however, her hope is renewed as the sunshine, swallows, and even the river itself tell her that they don't believe he's passed away. So begins her epic quest. Accidentally, it turns out, she's trying to trade her new red shoes to the river in exchange for Kay's body, but steps on an undocked boat to throw them into the water, and the boat floats downriver with her in it, the shoes following behind in the water as the river can't complete its end of the trade. She eventually floats to an old lady's home where flowers of every variety and every season grow, and tells her the whole story. This old dame has always wanted a girl like Gerda, and as she brushes the young girl's hair, Gerda forgets all about her mission to save Kay. This old lady is not described as evil, but a lonely conjurer, and she buries her roses so that Gerda will not be reminded of her friend Kay. But eventually, Gerda does realize that there are no roses and cries on the spot where they are buried. What luck! They speak to her and tell her that, "We have been in the ground where the dead bodies are, but Kay is not there." She then questions each other flower in the garden, and they have a whole lot to say, let me tell you. But none of it is relevant to Kay. Anyway, she breaks out of the garden to find that it is now autumn, and she has lost so much time. Eventually, Gerda encounters a trustworthy crow, to whom she tells her whole story and asks if the crow has seen Kay. Actually, yes, it may have. The princess in a realm close by has married someone like Gerda described, right down to his new squeaky boots. This princess would only marry someone who was handsome and could have an intelligent conversation with her, and hundreds were turned away, except for this one boy who had won her heart. This crow has an inn to the palace, his tame sweetheart, who is also a crow and who gets a key for Gerda to enter the decadent royal bedchambers by way of a door in the back of the castle. Once there, Gerda sees that the prince is not her Kay, but tells the whole story to the prince and princess, who end up wanting to help her. They provide her with fancy warm clothing and a golden carriage outfitted with a full contingent of staff as well as candy, fruit, and cookies. The crows, who the royal couple scolded and then thanked, are now married and allowed to eat the kitchen's leftovers. One has a food hangover, but the original friendly crow accompanies Gerda for the first 3 miles of her journey in the golden carriage. But because a fancy shiny golden carriage is a pretty conspicuous means of travel through a forest, she is soon waylaid by bandits, who kill all of her men and steal the horses. They're about to kill her too when a spoiled little bandit girl stops them. She would like Gerda as a friend, and she always gets what she wants. After listening to Gerda's story, she feels moved to protect her. Back at the Robber Palace, the girl shows off all of her captive birds and even her imprisoned reindeer, Bah. Oh, I have been missing Svenny boy, who she loves to tickle with her knife. Reindeers are better than people. Poor animals are regularly tortured for this girl's amusement. She is quite cruel. Then she pulls Gerda into bed. Gerda asks if she always sleeps with her knife, and yes, she does, because you never know what can happen. Oh, poor girl. She asks Gerda to tell her the story again. This time, all the animals hear as well, and 2 wood pigeons say that they have seen little Kay in the Snow Queen's carriage. They remember because she blew upon all the young pigeons, and these 2 were the only survivors. Oh. The reindeer confirms where the Snow Queen could be headed, and Gerda starts shaking for joy, I think, that the robber girl threatens her with the blade in the belly. Or maybe not threatens, but Gerda's just jostling so much that she's scared she'll accidentally stab her. Next morning, the coast is clear of thieves, and the robber girl distracts her mother with the big bottle and sets Gerda on Ba, makes sure she's properly clothed for winter, outfits her with 2 loaves of bread, a ham, and saddle, then ties her fast. Gerda is on her way to Lapland. They come across the hut of the Lap woman, a hut with the roof slanting so low that the family has to crawl in. Ba tells his story first, then Gerda's, and the woman says that they are still hundreds of miles from Finnmark, or as some translations have it, Finland, where the Snow Queen has a residence and lights Roman candles every night. She writes a message on a piece of dried cod for Gerda to give to the Finn woman, who can hopefully help her more than the Lap woman can. North they go, running with the northern lights, and arrive at the Finn woman's home, where they enter through the chimney as there is no front door. It is so hot in there that all their layers have to come off, and the Finn woman keeps an ice block on Ba's head. She reads the message on the fish 3 times and then cooks it. Ba tells the tales and begs the woman for some magic, for she can tie all of the winds of the world together with a piece of twine, and if untied properly, would give the user the strength of 12 men. Surely enough to overcome the Snow Queen. Stronger than 1, stronger than 10, stronger than 100 men? Ha! The woman says such power would be of no use, for little Gerda already has all the power she needs to help Kay, her own purity and innocence of heart. Brute strength won't do. Unless the glass is removed from his eye and heart, he will never again become human and will contentedly remain under the Snow Queen's control. She says that the Queen's garden starts 2 miles from here, or 10 depending on whose translation you read, so make haste. Ba is only to drop her off at the berry bush and then come straight back, or else. Only once they set out does Gerda realize she's missing her warm winter accessories. I really hope she only had to ride those 2 miles now without them instead of the 10. Eventually, she and Ba arrive at the garden and say a bitter farewell at the red berry bush. Huge, menacing snowflakes roll out to meet her, the guardians of the Snow Queen, shaped like serpents and porcupines and bears. Marshmallow's origin? Frightened, Gerda utters her prayers and her warm puffs of air turn into angels who spear the Queen's guards and even make Gerda's feet less cold. Maybe Anna's breath puff after she sacrifices herself is a nod to this earlier tale. Anyway, Gerda confidently continues her steady mission to the Ice Palace. Now this palace is not the beautiful expression of Elsa's power, but nature-made and gorgeous in its own wild way. Drifts of snow hollowed out by winds of lifetimes make hundreds and hundreds of empty rooms, stretching for miles. The northern lights illuminate this hollow place spectacularly. Were there any joy here, Gerda imagines animals having parties and balls in its cavernous spaces. The most breathtaking feature of this palace is the immense empty hall with the frozen lake, which had burst into 1,000 perfect pieces. A true work of art, and when she's home, the Snow Queen's throne. Currently, though, she's out cooling off some volcanoes in Italy to benefit the lemon and grape harvest, so she's not all bad. Leaving little Kay on the ice floor alone, trying to figure out a clever puzzle to earn his freedom. He must make the shapes he has been given spell the word eternity, and the Queen will make him his own master, give him the world, and a new pair of skates. When Gerda sees Kay, he is so blue-black and motionless that he looks like death. She utters more prayers and the winds die down, letting her approach the unmoving Kay. She calls out and hugs him, but no response. She weeps hot tears that fell upon his breast, penetrated into his heart, and thawed the lump of ice, and consumed the little piece of glass in it. The power of love! He looks at her and she sings a song that moves him to tears, so removing the glass splinter in his eye. He now recognizes her and wonders where he is? Where has she been? How long has it been? They are so happy that even the ice pieces around them leap for joy and fall down into the puzzle word eternity, thereby freeing Kay. The 2 friends walk out of the ice palace and meet up with Ba and another reindeer, who whisk them back to the Finn woman's hut, where they are thawed out real quick, given a new sledge and clothing, and are sent on their way home. En route, they happen upon the robber girl, who really hopes Kay was worth all that trouble. Gerda asks after the prince and princess, who have apparently gone off to other countries. The crow has died. The tame one is now a widow who complains a lot. The Rabbit Girl promises to visit them if ever she's in town, and then they go their separate ways. Gerda and Kay come to their town, hear the bells ringing, and go back to the grandmother's house, where everything is just the same. They realize that they are not the same, though. There they both sat, grown up and yet children. Children in the heart, and it was summer. Warm, delightful summer. The end. So that is the story of Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. A ton of stuff happens, but in the end it's kinda all the same. I can see why Disney made their own story, but can also appreciate the little hidden gems from the original tale that they did include. I do see Anna very much in Little Gerda, her hope, perseverance, and willingness to do whatever it takes to get her friend and sister back. And in Elsa, I see pieces and fragments of Kay. At first, the wonder of showing tricks to friends, like the ice flowers, feels like Elsa and Anna playing until Anna gets hurt. Then later, the cold isolation. And of course, Elsa's character design comes from the Snow Queen a bit too. Andersen's queen is more of a force of nature than an evil being though, but I suppose Elsa's powers are neither good or evil per se too. Disney's original concept art for Elsa absolutely gives off the cold, ambivalent, and sometimes menacing vibe. I definitely see the Snow Queen's influence here. Like in some other of Andersen's tales, the evil is not in one character but in a human condition. In this case, the mirror fragments that could serve as a metaphor for cold and harmful personality traits. So that's our adventure into the chilly story of Frozen's origin. But what are some of your thoughts? What is something that you would go to any lengths to save? Or an easier, lighter question, what's your favorite season, if you got them? We go through all of them and then some in this story, so let me know in the comments below. Hey friends, good to see you again, and thank you for tuning into this animation. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe and like and click that bell. Okay, I'll see you soon in the next video. Goodbye!